All right, perfect. And we're good to go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our after church tea time. Today, we're going to be exploring our takeaways from the sermon by Alexandra and Laurencio. But before we start, I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Granville Campbell, and I'd like to invite everybody on the call to introduce themselves, please.
Yeah. Hello, we are Daniel and Carmen, twin flames in union
And Ascension coaches in training.
and Ascension coaches in training. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. I'm Drake, and I'm an Ascension coach. So, yeah, hello.
Great. Awesome. Thank you all for being here and joining me for this after church tea time. So as I said, we're gonna share our takeaways from the sermon by Laurencio and Alexandra on why valuing yourself is essential to your success on your twin flame journey. And so we also invite all of you to please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Any questions or just any insights that you have that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to do that. So I think just for me as a start, I feel like the sermon was probably quite fortuitous and quite greatly timed in the sense that it just gives the opportunity to take the step back and consider what valuing myself actually feels like and looks like to me. So I feel like that's probably something that kind of yo-yos in my life. So sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. But I think the great thing about the sermon was Laurenccio's invitation into saying, you don't have to sit in the bad feeling. You can actually value yourself by moving through it using the mirror exercise to bring yourself back to that state of peace or space of peace. So I feel like that's kind of been the biggest standout for me is just that invitation because I feel like I kind of sometimes just lose track of it. So yeah, I'm going to open it up to everybody and ask you, what was your biggest takeaway from the sermon today?
Yeah, for me, that stood out as well. Like valuing yourself means that you don't have to sit in an upset. And if you do so, like you ask yourself, why am I doing this? And I was reflecting on that too, because, Daniel and I just recently had a fight. We shared that as well in the open forum. And, like one of those big fights, and I was also sitting in an upset for a very long time. Like way longer than usual. And I was reflecting on it and I was like, yeah, in that moment I was really hating myself. I was really having a grudge on myself and thinking like, screw it all. And I feel this experience also really showed me like it's not worth it to sit in that and I deserve better and I choose to feel good. I'm not doing this to, make him come back or make him stay, but I choose to do this for myself and that started to feel really good. And yeah, they were also sharing in the sermon that you don't see a person like your twin flame, for example, right, as your source. When you say like, when once they are with me, I can feel good, but that is also not valuing yourself. And so that's really like what I took from it. And I also love that they that was shared that your value doesn't come from anything you do or the more you give or whatever. It's just, your being by being your natural, authentic self. And that is I feel really relaxing because we grow up in a society where it's taught like the more money you earn, the bigger your house is, the bigger your car, the more beautiful your wife or your husband or whatever, the more children you have, the better you are. But this is not true. Like these are all almost like materialistic things, let's say, or things you put outside of yourself. But just because you are who you are, this makes you very valuable and you just have to see that and claim that for yourself and see it for yourself and give yourself appreciation. And yeah, I really love that too. Like I started to do that also more. Like that's what I love about fights, afterwards when you move through them, you really are able to see your worth and your appreciation for God so much deeper. And that's something else they shared that I really loved about the sermon is yeah, that it's like they use the specific word like a symbiotic or something like this, right?
Symbiotic.
Yeah, genau. With the relationship with God, and that you value Him as well, that you appreciate Him, and this is valuing yourself as well, and that you share your healing. That you share your value. Once you feel good, you have to share it as well. This is not only grounding your healing, but it also shows other people like I can have it too. And you're not just wasting that energy, because otherwise God feels like, oh, I love you, but it's like he's a smart investor, so he's not gonna invest more into you when you're not appreciating what you have and share it with others, right? Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, that really stood out to me. Mhm.
Yeah, that for me too. Actually, yesterday I was working through this block of valuing myself because I was feeling like, well, when I hold my standards high or I value myself, I'm like closing the gate for others to come to God because I'm not making myself available to, people who don't value things or God, right? But then I realized like, no, and this is something they also share in the sermon, like when you value yourself, you are also valuing God and vice versa, right? Like we are one. And so, yeah, what I got from this is like valuing ourselves is more, it's much more than just an idea of, what we should be doing, but a feeling of like, this is good. Like you don't just give away $1 million just because you have them, right? Like you invest them properly. And maybe it's a little of a materialistic way of seeing it, but like God could be like these $1 million, but you're not just not going to give them away to someone who doesn't like it because they are not or want it because they are not going to value it. They are going to probably squander that $1 million. But if you value it and keep it for yourself, but share it properly, then you can invest it and expand it and grow it. And that's where I got like the insight, like, yeah, when you value yourself, you need to also share that properly, like not leak it, but share it. And Lau and Alex mentioned that like you don't just sit for 1 week watching Netflix. Once you start valuing yourself, you share it with others, and that's when you actually value others too, because you see like the God in them and how this can help you. So I think, yeah, this is something that I constantly go deeper and deeper into. I'm learning more and more. And yeah, it's so nice that the sermon was about this topic because I was working through it yesterday, so I resonated a lot with it. And yeah, I now feel and see like valuing myself is not, a luxury, but actually just a nice lifestyle of taking care of myself and loving myself. It's not that I'm not making myself available. I'm just showing people how to appropriate or properly connect with me and how I connect with others too, because I also value them when I value myself.
Yeah, this sermon was really good because I've been working through. I realized that a big block in my life was, yeah, I wasn't like truly valuing myself. Like I thought I was, and then I felt into this big pattern I was having, and I said, yeah, no, I actually don't. So yeah, this sermon was just perfect because it was just reminding me like, yeah, you're supposed to take care of yourself first. And growing up with this belief and everyone around me, like, in order for someone to recognize your value, you have to like do all these things, right? You have to give this or, do this or be a certain way. And that's how someone's going to recognize your value. But in spiritual truth, that's not what it is at all. That they recognize your value by you valuing yourself because that's the energy that you put forth. And I remember, they were also talking about like recognizing that your presence is a value, right? And obviously with your twin flame too, in that essence, like you with your twin flame, if they're not valuing like your presence or whatever that is, you have to remember that, yeah, it's you first and it's God first. And that's something that I took away because I'm working through that in my union personally, where I have to like really recognize that, yeah, I need to value myself, and I can't just like go to my twin flame whenever because she needs me, because then that's just disrespecting myself and disrespecting like um, like the position of, you know, teacher and student and all of that. Yeah, so it's just been a lot of healing for me. I'm kind of in upheaval right now, but this is after church tea time is very grounding. And yeah, it was really powerful when they were just saying, hey, you need to just accept like what God is giving you and accept how valuable that is. Um, because yeah, I heard that and I said, wow, I haven't really been doing that either. Like I've kind of always been looking for more support or looking for, you know, all of these things instead of just sitting and being like, yeah, I value everything right now. Like this is enough. And yeah, I didn't realize that me kind of going out and wanting all these things was leaking the energy. Hence why I was feeling tired or feeling I couldn't give or because yeah, I wasn't like putting the value properly there. So yeah, this is really good. Really good sermon. My goodness. I think I said that about 5 times, but it's really good. It was just what I needed. I turned it on. I said, wow, this is what the heck, God? It's so interesting how you ask God for something and God just gives you exactly what you need. And I felt like that's what this sermon was. Yeah. Because I was saying this morning too, God, I really need help here too, because I have this pattern and like I want to value myself even more. And then that's right there. So it shows how much too, how God values you, right? Like God values you and God wants you to just see yourself as he sees you, right? Like you're valuable, your presence is extremely valuable. What you're sharing is extremely valuable. And I feel, yeah, a lot of people don't really know that. Or they think that valuing themselves is like this selfish thing. But no, that's not selfish. That's just you claiming who you are. And if other people think that, then yeah, it's just because they don't really value themselves in that sense too. So yeah, it's good. Feel good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I love what all of you have shared because I think the whole timing of the sermon again and for all of us has just been perfection. And yes, I've also been over the last couple of weeks just kind of working through the energy of deservingness and kind of trying to understand what deservingness actually feels like. And so I've been healing through this for a couple of weeks, and literally, probably in this last week, it just felt like business relationships have just shifted, which felt very bizarre because it like literally feels a bit like night and day. And I was just like, I was just as you were saying, Drake, I was talking to God, and I was like, what changed? Like what happened? Because I didn't, and I think that's the thing that stood out for me is that I worked through it, I healed through it, and I left it alone. And there was the significant shift. And I almost didn't understand where that shift had come from. So, it's kind of just nice to have the reminder of like, well, actually, buddy, you did this work. Like, actually appreciate that you did this work. And this is the evidence of the shift. And I feel like that's something that we don't encourage people to look for evidence on the outside. But there cannot help but be evidence on the outside when the inside shifts, right? And it's something that Daniel was speaking to as well. Like, it's that thing of what's happening on the outside and how much does it take your attention. But then you realize when you actually see those kind of shifts, you realize how powerful your healing has actually been. And that in and of itself is the realization of valuing yourself. You kind of took the time, you did the work, and you can't not see the evidence. It's just as simple as that. There has to be evidence. There's always an action step, and that action step always results in evidence. And it's not that we're looking for the evidence, but when we see it, I think it's really great to actually celebrate that evidence is coming through. And sometimes we forget to celebrate it. right? And I think that that's part of valuing yourself is actually celebrate your win. Like learn to actually celebrate your win.
Yeah, I love what you shared. Um, in the card reading, I think, or in general in the sermon, it was also said, like, or reminded that Jeff and Shaleia also always say, like, during challenging times, you need to lean towards your joy. You really need to, like, enjoy these times. And this is also something we've been going deeper, like, just because things don't look the best on the outside or something doesn't mean that we are not allowed to have fun. Actually, if we wouldn't do that, then it would feel super heavy and you would just keep looking for blocks and that's not what they teach. It's about feeling good. It's about feeling good on your way of manifesting things, and this is the way you attract your good to you. And yeah, it's extremely important. And also, we've been going deeper also with boundaries because, for example, when we sit together in a session or something, um, one of us is always like a little touchy towards the other, and then we were always like a little like, okay, it's okay, I just don't want to be mean or tell her right now in the session like stop it or something, right? But we started to value ourselves more and actually be like, you know what, stop it. And then the other one is like, oh, okay. And it makes you even feel more attracted because you're like, oh Jesus, they are valuing themselves. Like he put a boundary on me. It feels good, I get to what I was seeking from him, I get to seek from God now. That feels really good. And then you can come from from that place of peace. And we've been both doing that, and it feels extremely good. I even sometimes encouraging to like set a boundary with me if you don't feel good with this. I don't know if you don't like it or not. But yeah, it's like it's funny. You still need to communicate, right, with everyone, also with your twin flame. Like sometimes that's something I'm also kind of like learning or integrating more. Not everyone can like what does that mean? No, not yeah, no one can read your mind, and also not your twin flame. Like yes, there's telepathy and stuff like that, but they cannot read your mind if you don't like it or if you like this or whatever, you gotta speak about it. And yeah, that's also valuing yourself, you speak up for yourself and that feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I feel, a very key, important thing in the healing, as Granville was sharing, like to enjoy the thing. I remember this class where Jeff talks about that sometimes working on a block can be like painting a house, right? And when you finish painting a house, you don't go immediately paint another house. Like you rest, you chill, and you admire what you painted already, and you're just like, oh my God, it's so good. And after you rested enough, then you just go and paint the next house, but you don't like immediately jump into the other one. And that's something that I have been practicing a lot because, yeah, as we move through this visa process for me, it has been very emotionally challenging for us, like really trusting the process and letting go of all this like uncertainty. And after this fight we had this week, we felt called to go to the movies. And I was feeling like, wow, am I allowed to feel joy, to feel happy after this big fight? Like usually when you have like this big fight, you are in this like blame or guilt mode where you're just like, I'm sorry for what I did, and I'll make things better, and I promise you it won't happen again. But what we felt called to do was like, let's go to the movies together. I was just like, what about like this guilt part? Is it okay to just jump into immediate happiness and joy? And I was just like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what's going on. And we wanted to watch like Jurassic Park in these 4DX theaters that the seat moves and they spray you with water, like more immersive experience. But they didn't have it available anymore, so we were a little like sad, like, So I tried in another theater that had like also like super cool surround audio. And the moment I had to pay, the tickets were for free. They were like on sale, like 2 for 1. And I had some points in my account I didn't remember, and they allowed me to pay with these points, so the tickets were for free. And I was just like, okay, it's okay to enjoy even when you make mistakes or things don't go your way or the way you think it's like perfect, right? Like, and there's no need to go through this guilt phase. So when you allow yourself to really follow God, like God doesn't see this guilt or blame or whatever happens after a fight, he's just like keep enjoying. And the more you enjoy, the more he invests in you, and that expands and grows and feels better. So yeah, I really appreciate what Rambil said about like enjoying it, because I feel sometimes a lot of the times we miss this point of enjoying it and allowing it to expand. And that's what Jeff and Shalia say all the time, like integrating and allowing the piece to expand is part of the healing. It's not just working through as many blocks as you can, but also
Yeah.
like enjoying the piece you already achieved.
Yeah, I think this is a really big misunderstanding. Yeah, and also when you do it with God, it's always better than you imagined. Like we were really fixed on those seats, and it was never working out. You couldn't pay for some reason on the website. And then you went there in person, and then they said like, "Oh, sorry, there's this new movie, and that's why we replaced it, so you couldn't do it." But and we were like, "Jesus, what's going on? We just want to watch a movie." And I don't know, we kind of surrendered. And then Daniel found this, and actually it turned out like, yeah, as he said, it was for free. And we were like alone in the cinema. Like I think just two other people came like 15 minutes late or something, but we were almost alone in this huge ass cinema. And we had the popcorn for free too, right?
No, we paid for that one,
But it
but
was
we
cheap.
had like all the seats available. Like we could sit wherever we wanted, but we stayed in the middle because we liked it there, and it was really good. Nice experience.
Yeah, God always gives you more than what you ask for or exactly what you need, and that's perfect. And it's worth to surrender to God. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something else that I wanted to also maybe just expand on was part of the sermon that spoke to boundaries. Because I feel like we've grown up, or well, certainly I grew up with misunderstanding what boundaries were altogether, and probably not necessarily understanding boundaries in the first place. And it's something that Drake was speaking to around not always being available, and something that Daniel was speaking to about also about not always being available, but honoring yourself and your space and your requirements. And I feel like as I've grown in the teachings of union, boundaries feel like the simplest thing now, where before they actually felt really tough because I was also probably subscribing to the philosophy of you have to give more than, but sometimes more than you intend to in order to be of value to people. So if you're always available, if you are potentially sometimes the dumping ground, the agony aunt, all of that other crap. And I feel like as I've grown with the teachings, boundaries have become so simple that it's actually a no-brainer. Like if something even remotely feels odd, my first reaction is give me a moment, let me think about it. And we've never actually, I've never been taught to take the time to think about something and go, well, do I want to do it or don't I want to do it? And through the healing, it's kind of like there's a point at which if something doesn't feel like a resounding yes automatically, it's probably a no. But we don't necessarily feel comfortable with our no. We don't value our no. And there's value in not actually treating yourself like butter spread and being everywhere. You don't have to be the spread for everything. And I feel like that's kind of been a big journey for me because I grew up with that philosophy of put other people first. Other people come first. And it's like the whole shift has actually resulted in significantly more peace, but also sometimes significant feelings of isolation because all of a sudden you're not always available. So all those people that were taking from you all the time aren't always around because now they realize that they can't take all the time. And I feel like that in and of itself is also peaceful because I didn't realize that I was actually becoming a little begrudging of always giving. And now that I don't do it, I kind of feel so much more peaceful when I do it. It feels a lot healthier when I do it. But that's because I don't always give. Where there's a requirement for a boundary, it becomes so much easier, and therefore the energy is available when I do choose to give.
Yeah, I definitely can relate with what you're saying because I'm a very giving person, but I'm kind of like, nah, I don't want to give that much anymore. Uh yeah, I wouldn't say it's like matching people's energy, I guess, but it's more of like, why am I going to give so much here, And there's I don't know how to say it because it's not like I'm expecting something, but it's like you have to match what you're getting, right? But I recognize though when I took that step back and I just was like, all right, well, I want to give here, but let me just give to myself. Let me do that first. It actually I just felt a lot better and that's really valuing yourself too. I can't remember if it was a class I was watching or what I came across, but it was something of Jeff and Shalea's, and they were just talking about they're like why are you not choosing to just enjoy your life now? Like why wait for your twin flame where you can just be happy right now and accept where you're at? Because if you're waiting for your twin flame or you're not happy or just being miserable because they're not in your life or they're not talking to you or whatever it is, that's actually not you're not valuing yourself there because you're placing your value outside of yourself, and that's also what they talked about in the sermon, right? You're placing your value or you're giving value to like the upset or feeling bad rather than feeling good. And I think about that's also it's not really talked about enough on the journey is that yeah, like you can be happy right now, right? You can have joy, you can have happiness right now in this moment. You don't need your twin flame. You know what I mean? And if you want that, then yeah, look at yourself and just go, well, I want something from my twin flame, so let me just give that to myself. Um, and yeah, that your twin flame is just loving you there. They're being like, nah, I'm not your source. God's your source. You're your source. Value yourself there, and then I'll value you. And that's very, very important because I know definitely when I first started my journey, I was always looking for my twin flame to like come do stuff with me or oh, I'm gonna be miserable if my twin flame's not doing this. No, I'm just like, no, that feels bad. Like I just choose to feel good, and I'm gonna do that regardless of if I'm hanging out with my twin flame or not. And that mindset just brings you back into the space of like, yeah, I'm good, and I value myself, and choosing to value like the time and the energy and the love that you give yourself because that's also extremely important. Um, because I know we were also talking about how, Laurentia was saying if you're upset and you're not loving yourself, yeah, that's you not also making the choice to value yourself because you're letting yourself be upset, you're letting yourself be sad, when you can just choose to feel good. So yeah, it's very, very important. And I also want to touch on what you said, Granville, about like seeing external results. Because yeah, I've been working on valuing a lot. And I remember I was in this session with my coach, and I was talking about how I didn't feel valued at work. Because I'm like, I'm doing all this work and I'm like loving it really well. And I'm not getting, I just don't feel supported. Like I feel like I'm not valued there. And so I worked through it and I said, I choose to value myself. I'm not gonna overgive. I'm just going to do what my job says and that's it. And then if God calls me to give more or do something here, then I will. But ultimately, just going to value myself and my energy. And then 2 days later, when I went back to work, one of my bosses pulled me aside. He's like, I told the director that you need a raise and he's not going to wait. You're going to do it now and you're going to get the raise now. I said, okay. He goes, yeah, they're not waiting. I said, all right, cool, fine, sure, awesome. And so I accepted that. And then later on that week, um, I don't know, I had a lot of energy that day. And thank God I did because I was just, doing all these things, multitasking at work, making a lot of food and stuff. And the regional manager, so I work in like a corporate thing. And so the regional manager that manages all these property in like the northeast of the United States, like came to our place. It was just, walking around, like not assessing, but just like visiting. And she probably manages over like 300 properties, throughout everywhere. Um, they were just doing things and tasting soup. And I made this soup and she tasted it. And she didn't tell me, but she told my boss, she's like, this is the best soup I've ever had since like in all of these like locations. This is the best one I've had. Like that's insane. That's crazy. And then she left, and that's when my boss came and told me, he's like, hey, she said this. This is you've impressed her a lot. And I said, oh, wow, okay. Wow. And but it was just a reflection of like, hey, like God was saying, you're very valuable. And here, like, I'm gonna give you even more recognition. Like this big, huge corporate lady was just like, yeah, this is the best soup I've had in this 300 locations. That's insane, but not in a bad way, in a good way. Uh, so yeah, it's you do see results on the outside. Obviously, I wasn't doing that to see the result. I was just doing it to love myself, as Carmen was talking about, because I deserve that. But yeah, then you get little winks from God is, hey, it's working. Here you go. Your reality aligns with your inner reality. This is what you wanted. So yeah, it's cool. It's awesome to just to see those results, and it just feels really good to value myself. It really does. So
Awesome. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty complete with after church tea time today. How about you guys? And it's also great that we ended on such a positive note. So nice feedback there, Drake. Also, thank you to everybody else for that has followed us. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel. And also, please feel free to visit unionism.org and consider donating or tithing to help us continue doing the work that we're doing and reaching more people. Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to seeing all of you soon for our next After Church Tea Time.